Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning in to the show. I got my crew with me, Darnell and Tyler. I'm Trey, and we're coming your way with the 58th edition of the Don't Kill the Messengers podcast. First thing we're going to get into today is the UFC. Got a great card coming up this Saturday with UFC 209. Just looking at this card, Darnell, man, I think this is going to be definitely an entertaining card to see, man. I think this definitely makes up for the last pay-per-view event that they had. But just looking at it, man, what do you think about this card?
Yeah, definitely some fun fights on this one. Pay-per-view worthy pay-per-view finally. The whole main card basically. We're probably going to get some good action, some stoppages, and elite fighting. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah. First one we're about to get into, man, is my man Alistair Overeem versus Mark Hunt. I think this one has definitely a good chance for this to be in a quick stoppage. Both of these guys having some great power. How do you see this fight
going? Oh, this is probably the hardest one to figure out on the card. You got two coming off of losses. Well, I guess Mark Hunt's was overturned after Lesnar popped hot. But as far as we last saw them both on the losing end, with Hunt being a decision and Overeem getting KO'd and trying to talk his way out of it. So both of them, they got a lot to fight for to try to get themselves back into contention. I guess looking at history prior to both of their losses, we have Mark Hunt. His two fights before were wins over Frank Mir and Bigfoot Silva, but he had also lost two prior fights to Stipe Miocic and Fabricio Verdum. Both of those were by stoppage from punches. Before Overeem's loss, he was on a 4-fight win streak with 3 out of the 4 being by KO. So I guess I would lean more towards Overeem. He had been on more of a hot streak. I guess I'm asking a lot of him to come back from a pretty rough looking KO. As like I said, he basically didn't know what had happened and was talking out of his behind after the fight. But I think he'll come ready. He's a bigger, taller fighter. He's a kickboxer, so I would assume he would be smart enough to stay, use his length and range to win this fight.
Yeah, I agree with this one, man. I'm gonna go with my man Overeem. Just with him with this whole entire height. I think even though he lost against Miocic with his last fight, I think he hopefully he learned something from that fight and be able to utilize it, whatever he learned against Mark Hunt. So both of these guys, Mark Hunt, he's a guy that can go out there and just knock you out in an instant. So he's gonna have to be careful with those hands, especially when we're coming off a knockout from Miocic. So hopefully, this is to be a learning experience for Alistair, man. It doesn't go out there. Be careful just watching Mark Hunt's hands. I would like to see him actually kind of just stand his ground a little bit with his last fight against Miocic. It's kind of just like he was running from him a little bit up in the fight. Just think he needs to be a little bit more confident in himself and what he can do, kind of stand his ground a little bit, and just don't let Mark Hunt be the aggressor like he let Miocic be the aggressor in the last fight. So yeah, just be calm, stand his ground, man, and just use that reach. I think he'd be able to pull this one off. So. You feeling a knockout in this one? What do you think?
I think one way or the other, somebody is probably getting knocked out in this one. Yeah, I mean, unless they're both gun shy or something, I wouldn't see Mark Hunt being that way. He usually is the type to just keep coming forward. So
yeah,
sometimes Overeem can be a little gun shy, but that's usually when he gets knocked out. So
yeah, so just have to see, man. This is going to be an entertaining fight, I believe. So. Just have to check it out. Up next, man, we're about to get into your boy, Rashad Evans. He's going to be fighting against Daniel Kelly. How do you think he's going to end up performing in this fight, man?
I don't know. It's a good question.
He's been, he's had quite a little layoff, right?
Yeah, his last fight was, April of last year, where he lost by KO to Glover Teixeira.
Yeah.
And then before that, there was the decision loss to Ryan Bader in October 2015.
Yeah.
So he's getting to the point now where it looks like he might be just that gatekeeper for the light heavyweight division to see if somebody is promotable to start getting the the upper level of the light heavyweight division. You got Daniel Kelly coming in. I think he's 6-1, 5-1 in the UFC. So it looks like he's on a 3-fight win streak. 2 by decision, 1 by KO. I think he's to that point where they want to see if he can fight somebody that's on the downside of his career, but still in the upper half of that division, to see can he start moving up and getting top 10, top 8 fighters. And then with Evans, I know he still feels like he has better to show. We'll see. If he loses this one, it's probably time to start thinking about that post-fight career.
Yeah. Now, have you familiar with a lot of Daniel Kelly's fights? You're pretty familiar with him in the ring?
Not totally. I haven't seen him much. No, he's a southpaw fighter.
Okay.
He does have a lot. He has a mix of victories. 5 submissions, 3 KOs.
Okay.
So looks like he does a little bit of everything in the ring. So I wouldn't be able to break this one down totally. I haven't seen him fight enough to really give an honest breakdown of his style.
Okay. But you're going to be pulling for your boy Rashad, right?
Well, of course. Us Spartans stick together, so.
All right, man. Nothing wrong with that, man. I'll pull with him too, man. Dude's grateful when he was at his peak, man. Dude was doing some amazing stuff. So, hopefully he can go in there and utilize the experience he's got in the octagon and, take it to Daniel Kelly. So it's going to be interesting, man. Like I said, I haven't seen Daniel Kelly, that much in the ring. So be good to see what he has to offer, especially against a veteran like Rashad Evans. This could be a good way to put him over, into the UFC. So. All right, up next, we got Khabib Nurmagomedov. You put me on this guy, man. His last fight against Johnson, it was good. I like what he done, but he's going to be fighting against Tony Ferguson. This is going to be a great fight, I believe, man. But, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, this one's a killer matchup here. Khabib is good all around. He can do everything. Ferguson, really strong wrestler, good top game. It's hard to get him off you once he gets down there, but he's knocked some people out too. So these are 2 well-rounded fighters that neither can really make a mistake against the other and make it out without having to tap or have their lights put out.
Yeah. Now with these two, I saw an article, with Dana White. He said, McGregor's, next opponent, will ever win this, fight between these two. Will they end up facing McGregor next, or?
That's the only logical outcome for this one. Outside of just if McGregor treats his belt like his last one and never wants to defend it. If he's actually going to fight a contender, it has to be one of these 2. These are the only 2 that I would say have a claim at fighting for this title. Okay. So this is a true title eliminator here. The winner of this one is the undisputed number 1 contender.
All right. Now who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with the guy that has a 0 in the loss column. Nurmagomedov is just, he's just been impressive all around. He has no fear in him. He's uber confident. I'm not saying he's gonna run through Ferguson, but I just think he has a little bit. He has a few more tools in the toolbox to go to.
Yeah, man, I was really impressed with Embiid in his last fight, man. You put me on to him. I just remember his pay-per-view. He was like, "Hey, let's cover him." I was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And I saw him up in that prelim fight, man. I was like, "Wow." I was like, "Yeah, Darnell, man, he knows this dude good." I was very entertained with him. So, this would be a good fight between him and Tony Ferguson, man. Khabib, he's well-rounded, like you said. But yeah, one thing I do, man, I love about this guy is that his confidence, he wasn't afraid to trash talk against, McGregor or whatnot and, to stand up for himself and everything. So I just love this guy's confidence coming into the ring. I think he's going to be able to pull this one off. You think it's going to go all the rounds or KO submission or what?
If a finish does happen in this one, I think it's probably going to be late. Both of these guys are, like I said, skilled all around. They know how to protect themselves, and they both are fighting at the top of their game. So, outside of just somebody making a really bad mistake and getting caught early, I think we have a almost full 3-round fight here. We may not get we may get a finish, but if we do it, will be late.
Okay. All right, nothing wrong with that. Last but not least, for our final fight for UFC 209, we have Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Their last fight against each other was an absolute classic, possible fight of the year. Just remarkable, man. How do you think this fight, the second fight, will fare for these two since they first got some experience with each other in the ring?
Well, in the last fight, Thompson did what I thought he would do, odd angles, and was going to be hard to figure out.
Yeah.
But Woodley was actually more of a surprise for him.
Yeah.
He came in pretty prepared. He had Thompson in trouble at a couple times in that fight, and showed he wasn't the result of a flash knockout.
Yeah.
To get his title. So I'm not saying he gets. I think I still lean a little more towards Thompson just because I think he has a few more ways to win.
Yeah.
Unless Woodley does a little more focusing on wrestling to see if he can try to grind something out, or if he lands one of those
bombs.
Yeah, that. He's very capable of. We've seen him do it on multiple occasions. He's put out plenty of people. So, but this is just that ultimate protection neck type of fight here. 'Cause if one of these guys lands flush on you, you're going down. But they both brought it for 5 rounds last time, and I hope they do it again. I hope we get another instant classic, but I think I lean more towards Thompson still.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that, man. Like I said, I just love both of these guys' style in the rings, man. Wonderboy, he can just kick you, good footwork, how he just moves around. Woodley, Tyron Woodley, he's not afraid to grind it out, take you down. And if he needs to, he can land those shots. Big punches of his on you too, man. So just the style that these two bring in the ring, man, I think is gonna put this one up for a, classic fight, man. I think, me personally, I think it's gonna go the same way as the first one, man. I'm going for a draw on this one, man. I just think these two, with these matchups, man, I just think it's gonna be just one of those classic, just UFC rivalries, that just happened. I just like both of these guys' styles in the ring. Styles make fights. I think these guys complement each other pretty well. So.
Yeah. But also, probably Woodley's going to be coming in this fight with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, because over the last few months, him and the boss have been going back and forth about his treatment and as a champion.
Yeah,
so
I was just about to ask you about that. Yeah, with Tyron Woodley, he's been stating that he personally believes that he's the most disrespected fighter in the history of the UFC, disrespected champion, especially in the history of the UFC. Whether with people, saying he receives racist comments on Twitter or, with his treatment from Dana White. How do you feel about that, man? Do you agree with what he's been saying?
Well, I mean, I can't really speak to his Twitter account, but I mean, I don't see if he has any reason to lie about stuff people say to him there. Yeah. But as far as his promotion as a champion, I mean, yeah, honestly, he is under promoted. I would say, some because of, I think it was a surprise that he won the championship. I don't think a lot of people picked him to beat Robbie Lawler to win the belt. And most people didn't pick him to retain against Wonderboy Thompson in the first fight. Yeah. So I agree with him. He's not just like a hyped up champion. I mean, probably it's changed, but probably the only one that I thought was less promoted was probably Demetrius Johnson. Yeah, but since he's won so much, you have to show him that respect now. Yeah. But yeah, I think I would agree with him. I mean, for somebody that he's been in big budget movies. He was in Straight Outta Compton. He does a lot for himself. He has a connection with a city that was part of a giant news story in Ferguson, Missouri. There's a lot of stuff to promote about him. To try to push him as a champion. For the organization, but a lot of that stuff isn't used. So, I mean, I agree. He's not a highly promoted champion. The UFC, they have their reasons for it. I think Dana White was doing a little bit of trolling of him, of trying to say because his last fight was a draw, it was one of the best fights of last year. Yeah. So I don't think that's the reason to diminish your own champion. But it is what it is. I mean, it's because of some of that stuff that I am rooting for him. Like, I would be happy for him. Like, I would be ecstatic for him if he won. Like, I'm using my analyst hat just that I'm leaning Thompson, but I mean, who I'm rooting for probably is Tyron Woodley.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with you there. I like Thompson, what he brings to the ring and everything, but just the whole kind of like underdog kind of complex that Tyron Woodley has. I definitely agree with you. I don't think he gets nowhere near the respect and recognition that he truly deserves. Just with his talent, the effort that he puts into the ring, with just how he can wrestle, he can knock you out, just very well rounded in the ring. And, like you said, stuff outside of the ring that they can use to promote the guy. I just don't think that he's promoted that good. So, whoever wins this fight, I won't be disappointed with whoever the winner is. But yeah, I definitely won't be disappointed if Tyron Woodley was to still retain that title. So, yeah. So just hopefully, they just put on another classic matchup like they did last time. So. All right, next we're about to get into your man, GSP, man. Less than a month. He's already got his fight booked. It's going to be him versus Bisping for that middleweight championship. How do you feel about this, man? And what were your thoughts when you heard about this?
I mean, wasn't shocked. Like when we talked about his re-signing last week, that was one of the 3 fights that I figured he would be getting. Yeah. And Bisping was the most readily available. Since, McGregor is still on his hiatus or layoff that he was taking. And, he's right now more so about doing interviews about this mythical fight against Floyd Mayweather. And we have the welterweights fighting Saturday. So probably would be at least another 6 months before he would be able to get in with one of them. Yeah. So this was the most the one that he had a clear path to, and he's probably licking his chops because it's probably one of the better matchups, like I said last week. So not surprised, and I think this is probably the one he had circled outside of possibly a bigger payday if he was able to get McGregor.
Yeah, I was a little pissed off about this one. Nothing personal against GSP, he's, get the title fight if you can. But part of me, I wanted to see if if he was to fight Bisping, I wanted to see him fight Bisping after a Yoel Romero matchup against Michael Bisping. I just think that Romero was the one that deserved to fight first, since that was, I guess, typical weight class. This was a weight class GSP was not really familiar with. But I would have liked to see now when you kind of brought it up too in the text messages and stuff too, man. You know how Dana White, he was kind of bashing GSP and whatnot and everything, and now once he comes up, he finally got some sign and everything. It's hyping up getting a money fight for him with a fight against Bisping. So this was, nothing against GSP. Good luck in his fight against him. I think that, he matches up well against Bisping. If he truly hasn't faded away with his talent and whatnot. But I would have liked to see Yoel Romero be the one to get the fight against Bisping first. But yeah, nothing against GSP. It's just kind of my whole little issues with Dana White. As a whole, so
yeah, I can't argue anything you said there. I mean, Dana is, like I said to you on the text, he is very two-faced in that way. If you're not totally on board with him, he'll run you down, drag you, because he was basically pulling GSP's punt card, saying he didn't want to fight. We can't come to an agreement on money. Apparently he doesn't want to fight.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, this is the fighter that's made you probably the most money in his career, and
exactly.
You're trying to say he doesn't want to fight just because he's trying to make sure you pay him what he's worth.
Yeah.
Come on now with that.
Exactly.
So that's just Dana being Dana. He went through it with Randy Couture, and both times after he left, he went through with Tito Ortiz. He went through with Rampage. That's just Dana. If he's making money with you, you're the best person ever. If you're not, he'll treat you like dirt.
Exactly. All right, man. Anything else to add for UFC before we move on?
Look forward to this card.
All right. Up next, before we get into NCAA basketball, I'm just going to talk about NBA for a little bit. Right now, we got some key major injuries that's going on right now in the NBA with Kevin Durant and Joel Embiid. We'll start with Joel Embiid first. Then get to Kevin Durant. But what were you guys' thoughts on hearing Joel Embiid's being done for the season?
Yeah, I found it kind of interesting. He hadn't played the previous 2 years since he's been drafted because of the knee, and now he's playing. I wonder if he almost got rushed back into it, because it seems like he was playing, then he was all of a sudden playing a lot, and then he was taking almost every other game off. And I wonder if they kind of saw this coming, so they tried to lessen his workload. But definitely devastating news for 76ers fans and basketball fans in general, in my opinion. We're looking at a guy who was potentially Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And really a guy that was taking the NBA by storm. Trust the process has become a catchphrase you kind of hear regularly. I think Joel Embiid has a really nice place in this NBA. I think it's just unfortunate that the beginning of his career is just plagued by so many injuries.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say so many injuries, but significant ones.
There's been some significant ones this year for sure, man. I can definitely hear what you're saying right there.
Yeah, I'm not shocked by it. Philly really doesn't have anything to play for. They're a surprise if they're a little bit better than people expected them to be, but they have no title aspirations or anything like that. They've just made some moves to clear up space for their next lottery draft pick. So I think they're just protecting what looks like will be their franchise player, one of their two. Yeah, I guess if there's nothing really to play for in the second half of the season, I guess they're figuring why try to push for him to come back. Just shut him down, let him heal up, and give it another go next year, and hopefully they do a little better at pacing him and monitoring his health.
Yeah. just he was kind of just a little shock for me, man, just coming off that injuries that he had, not playing in a while. I wasn't really expecting him to have as good as a season as he's had. So, it was just good to see, man. But yeah, just hopefully, he handles that injury well and everything, takes his time with it. He heals up pretty well, so it doesn't linger him on in the future and everything. So just would love to see, what he can bring to the table next year, man. Just looking at a interview that he had, he was talking about studying Hakeem Olajuwon some to help add to his game, man. Just thinking, man, with that guy's talent, if he could somehow develop that dream shake, there would be just a pure beast, man. But yeah, I just wish him the best of luck with his injury and everything, man, because dude's definitely going to be a force in the NBA if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and we can also kind of say the 76ers got a little lucky here, too. Because at the trade deadline, they dealt Nerlens Noel, and there were rumors that they were also still trying to deal Okafor. But now with Embiid hurt, that slides Okafor into the starting role, and now there's no controversy in that front court. Yeah. And also, it's kind of a big break for Jahlil Okafor because he was the guy getting buried, and now he's the guy.
Yeah.
So it's a big break for him, and I would even kind of say a break for the Sixers as well because now they're out Noel, out Embiid. At least they still have somebody.
Well, and it's a win for the Sixers too. Just if they can let Okafor play out this season. If he shows what he showed last year, more teams may come a calling thinking they may use him, and they might be able to get more out of a trade for him if they still want to in the offseason.
Well, yeah, I mean, his last two games are kind of underwhelming, but the first game he played post Embiid injury, he went 28. So the talent's there. His last two games have been a little more underwhelming. Tonight, they're currently in the fourth quarter, and he only has 6 and 7. The game before, he only had 17 minutes logged and went 4 and 3. So, I mean, talent's there. I think he just needs to find a rhythm.
Yeah. All right, guys. Now, what about Kevin Durant? There's news going on about him possibly might needing to have surgery. He might just let it heal by itself, but he's had an injury. I think they said he's going to be out at least a month. So, what do you think about Kevin Durant being injured? How does this affect Golden State on their, pursuit to getting that championship ring this year? Just thoughts overall on his injury, man, and what it brings.
I guess it depends on when we can get a final estimate of when we can expect to see him back. Worst case scenario, I mean, hopefully they would get him back by second round or so we'd have at least a full series to try to play his way back into rhythm. But I'm pretty sure Golden State's hoping that it would be closer to that month and a half type deal, so he can get some regular season play in still to be up to snuff by the time the playoffs start. I don't see Golden State losing a first or probably a second round series just with the talent that they still have, but I'm not quite as worried about his yet till I hear how long they actually expect him to be out. When we can get a solid number, then I would be able to make a better assessment on this one.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because what makes me real skeptical about it is the fact that they say, all right, he's out at least 4 weeks, then we'll evaluate where he's at. Mm-hmm. So they don't even really know what they're dealing with, or they know and they're just not trying to show their cards. I think the most interesting thing is if you saw any interviews post game after that injury, spirits were way down. You would think they just lost the NBA championship. It was very odd. You could tell that they all knew it was something serious. So, I mean, with it being, diagnosed as a grade 2 MCL sprain, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a complete tear of the MCL. It could have been a complete tear of the ACL. Those would have both been season-ending. Could have been his meniscus. That could have been season-ending. So they kind of got a break that they're even calling it 4 weeks, and then they'll evaluate him. But, in reality, that's devastating for Golden State because the guy they basically cleared all of the room for could potentially be out when they need him the most. He was, in my opinion, he was having probably the second best year of his career, just based off of his efficiency numbers. I think the MVP year was his best year, but I just think that him going down is going to, I think that's going to force Steph Curry to have to play a lot better than he has been lately. We could we're going to see one of two teams. We're either going to see the team where Andre Iguodala came into the starting lineup in the finals and they took over and played great basketball, or we're going to see a team that is just demoralized because they don't really know what they're going to do without Kevin Durant. I don't hope that happens. I hope that, we can at least see, Durant in the finals. I think everybody at this point wants to see, Cleveland and Golden State rematch full strength. Then there's going to be no excuses for, we didn't have Durant. Cleveland had the series a couple years ago where they didn't have Kyrie Irving, and they kind of used that as a crutch of a statement. So I just want to see both teams full strength when it comes to the finals, in rhythm, completely going. So I hope Durant's not out that long.
Yeah.
All right, guys. What else I was going to ask you guys? You were talking about it last week with the trade deadline, but Darren Williams going to Cleveland Cavaliers. Both of you guys were talking about this over the phone through text messages. Especially the Cleveland Cavaliers kind of being like a rivalry, some people will say, to the Golden State Warriors. How does this help the Cavaliers? And how does, because I also believe Andrew Bogut, he signed with them as well. So how does these two help the Cleveland Cavaliers in their pursuit of repeating?
Yeah, I don't think Bogut signed with them yet, but that's all reports.
Okay.
Are going that way. So it's basically a for sure thing, just hasn't happened yet. I actually really like the acquisition of Darren Williams, a guy in the second half of his career, well past his prime. And honestly, he's not expected to do much. He's going to come on, play roughly 15 minutes a game, and just be in there and keep the game under control. He's very capable of that. He's a guy that used to average 20 and 10.
Yeah.
So he can completely come into a game for 15 minutes and keep things under control. He'll be able to dish the ball around to Korver, to LeBron, to whoever else is on the floor. So I really like that acquisition, picking him up. And I mean, they're not really giving up anything for him. So, I don't see how it's a bad move to pick him up, and as well as Bogut. If they get Bogut, it's just another rim protector. They have Tristan Thompson, but Bogut's kind of that extra level, of the rim protector. Tristan Thompson, great rebounder, good shot blocker. Another thing Bogut will add to them is, he played for Golden State, so he may be able to give them some different insights or something to give them some sort of an edge mentally or physically, something. But I think both these acquisitions are really good. They're not giving up really anything for them. So, hey, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah, I mean, these were players that they got to get on veterans minimum. So, I mean, for a team that's already deep into the luxury tax, it helps them not get too much further in it. I'm with Ty here. I like theoretically, if they get Bogut as well, I still like the D Will pickup more just because it allows LeBron to not have to handle the ball the whole game and run the offense, just because, as good offensively as Kyrie Irving is, he mold of a two-guard playing point. So he's not a guard you can, if LeBron's off the court, we can't depend on Kyrie to run sets. he's looking to get his points. So I think that's the help of having Darren Williams on the floor. He'll keep ball movement going. He's your traditional point guard, but he can still shoot. He's not as athletic as he used to be, so he's not going to be getting to the rack at will or doing anything that Kyrie would do. But I think he's just an acquisition is from an experience standpoint and a new primary ball handler that can keep sets and plays going to keep the offense running when LeBron has to be spelled for a couple minutes.
Yeah, I'll also be interested to see, because you said Irving's more of that two-guard point guard where he's looking to score, his 20, 25 points. I'll be interested to see if they ever run Irving at the 2 with D. Will at the 1. Have them on the floor at the same time. I mean,
I think it'll happen.
Yeah, I'm not saying, the impossible, or it'll be impossible or anything like that. But I just think it'll be interesting to see if they do it when they choose to do it. I'm sure if they need, ball security, they'll have both of them on the floor at the same time. I'm also sure, if they, need quick buckets, you're not going to have Tristan Thompson out there to get quick buckets. So at that point, I think that's a situation where we'd see Will on the floor at the same time as Kyrie Irving and LeBron. And I think that'll be a lot of fun to watch. So it'll be interesting to see when Will hits the floor for them, how they try to utilize him. And like I said, with both him and Bogut, another thing I really like about it, neither of them are being given a lot of responsibility here. Bogut's basically going to be told, go in there and be physical. Bang down low, crash the boards, protect the rim. That's all they're going to ask for him to do. They don't want him to do anything offensively. Get a bucket if you can. But and then, like I said, Darren Williams, 15 minutes a game and protect the ball. Like, these guys are more than capable of doing that. And I think they'll be able to just fill it very well.
Yeah, I would say watch out, especially like once Williams is more immersed into how this team runs. I think you will see a lot of late fourth quarter runs with him, Irvin, and Durant on the floor at the same time, just because of with Kyrie and Williams' ability to spread the floor because they can shoot. That'll open a lot more lanes for LeBron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, with Tristan Thompson out there offensively, he usually just sits under the rim. You don't really have to worry about him. If you, pull him out, Darren Williams is a guy you actually have to be concerned with on the offensive end of the floor. So it just keeps defenses honest. Like I said, Darren Williams can still shoot the ball. I think with Dallas, he was averaging like 12 or 14 points a game. I mean, he can still score if he needs to. So, but like I said, there's not going to be a lot of responsibility on him to score, but facilitating the ball around is what he does best. And he'll easily be able to do that with the weapons they have on the floor.
All right, guys. Anything else to add for the NBA?
No.
All right. Up next, we're about to get into is some NCAA basketball, particularly the tourney that's going to be going on. First of all, guys, what are your thoughts on this SEC tournament?
Kentucky
it's a one-team tournament.
Kentucky or nobody. I mean, to be fair, I guess just to kind of give some perspective here, the only other team I think people would even give a chance is Florida. I think a lot of people expect it to be Kentucky-Florida final. I believe they split the season series, so one team doesn't necessarily have the edge on the other. I believe both teams protected home court. So, I like Kentucky. They're starting to play some good basketball. They just came back from a 19-point deficit over Vanderbilt to win. So they're in a good spot. Malik Monk's an animal. Really stepped up and taken control of this team from an offensive standpoint. So yeah, I think as long as Malik Monk's scoring the ball, Kentucky's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit a spot on right there. pretty sure everybody expects it to end up being Kentucky, Florida at the end of the SEC tournament. I guess you can throw outside chances to South Carolina and maybe Arkansas if they were able to just get hot in the game and take one of them down, or just if Kentucky starts just focusing on the big tourney, just because, their ticket's punched and they're going to be a high seed. So, but yeah, those are, really the two teams and two dark horses, I guess I could say, that may be able to get hot and get deep into the tourney.
Yeah, and I think we'd both agree this is really the only tournament where you're, pretty confident what the final is going to be. I think all the other tournaments are pretty open.
Yeah.
Looking at the SEC, they just don't have the depth this year. Only 4 teams reached the 10-win mark. Well, granted, there's still a couple of games to go, so some teams could reach it. But as of right now, only 4 teams have hit the 10-win mark. So Kentucky's kind of controlled that conference all year. Like I said, Florida, I think if Florida's real hot in the end, they can do it. They can run with Kentucky. But I think, Kentucky just has the better talent. So, I'll end up picking Kentucky to win the SEC tournament here. And I'd be surprised if people pick otherwise, but that's just it.
All right, guys. What about the Big 12?
Kansas. What is it? 13 years in a row for the regular season title. That's super impressive. No other team in the country is sporting accolades like that right now. So, I think Kansas is the heavy favorite here, but there are some teams that I think can actually play in the Big 12 as opposed to the SEC. There's going to be some more teams that can actually give it a run. Trey and I wouldn't always talk about them, but I'd always mention West Virginia to you. I really like West Virginia. They run that press. They play good defense. They protect the ball, force a lot of turnovers. I think they're going to be a pretty good team in the tournament because of their defense. Usually if you play really good defense in the tournament, you can make it pretty far. So, West Virginia, I think, would be the team outside of Kansas I like. I know a lot of people would probably say Baylor. The Baylor-Kansas latest matchup was actually a great game. Came down right to the end. So this tournament, little top heavy with Kansas up there, but I still think this one has a little more leeway than the SEC does.
Yeah, if you're betting on it, you bet Kansas for this one for sure. But you took the two teams I had on my tongue that would possibly be able to steal one from them. That would be West Virginia and Baylor. West Virginia, like you said, they're pretty tenacious on the defensive end. They stick with you the whole length of the court. They get their hands on the ball a lot, and they run. They run all game. They're an active team. And then Baylor, they just match up physically well with Kansas. They have some good athletes on their team. Jonathan Motley's a really solid scorer for them. I think he's averaging about 18 a game or so. So yeah, if we had to look at it that way, those are the three to look at, with Kansas being, a couple car lengths in front.
Yeah, with Kansas, having Frank Mason III, who a lot of people are saying is player of the year, that's a good security blanket to have on your side. He's always seemed to step up big when they need somebody the most. And then, just having, players like Lucas and Graham, Josh Jackson, they fill out really nice, solid bench pieces. Even though Iowa State right now is the second team in the conference, I just don't really see them being there. They're one of the teams that, good in the regular season, postseason comes along and they somehow lose when they shouldn't. I kind of see that happening to them again this year. They've had a real quiet year. They don't have, the typical, cutthroat score they usually do. So I'm kind of staying away from Iowa State this year. But yeah, in terms of Baylor, good size. They have the ability to score the ball, very athletic. They like to run the floor as well, fast break. They like to play above the rim if they can. So that could give Kansas some fits. Kansas a little more fundamental in the way they play. They can get above the rim too. Don't misunderstand me there. But I think Kansas plays a lot better when they can play to their pace, and I feel like Baylor can play to any pace. Yeah, but like you said, I still like Kansas here. Like you said, a couple Carlins, and I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and I mean, just to say also, with Kansas, they're one of those teams where, like, you can tell they're very talented, but they let teams that shouldn't hang around. So, that's why I definitely think they have more of a chance than, like how we were talking about Kentucky, and the last segment to mess around and lose their conference tourney.
Yeah.
All right, guys. What are your thoughts on the Pac-12 tourney?
This one's going to be a little more fun, in my opinion. I think this one's kind of a 3-horse race, in my opinion. You got UCLA, Arizona, Oregon, all three very capable teams, all with some star power. UCLA and Arizona have had good matchups this year. UCLA and Oregon have had good matchups this year. It's going to be interesting to see what the final standings are for that conference, to see, which of those three are potentially going to have the semifinal matchup. That could dictate who makes it, to the conference championship there for the winner. A lot of people talked about UCLA early in the year, but they kind of cooled off. Those who are probably, Pac-12 junkies still talk about them constantly as being a national championship contender, but they lost a lot of that national buzz throughout the season. I don't really know what you can contribute to that. But if I had to pick a team that I like here, personally, I like, I like all three of them pretty equally, to be quite honest. All of them are very athletic, can shoot the ball. I think Oregon's probably the one team I would be most weary of. And I think that would be simply because I don't know that their depth is there. I feel like the other teams have better depth. They can bring players off the bench and not skip a beat. Oregon, I feel like they kind of have to stick with their stars. They have to stick with Dylan Brooks. He's just a stud athlete. He's their guy. And I think if he were to get into some foul trouble, have to sit out for long periods of time, he'd be the toughest guy to replace for any of those three teams.
Yeah, I mean, looking at, like, this is the conference where, I mean, it like you said, it's 3-horse race, but I don't know which of these teams is actually the best. They're all very good teams. They all have kind of different strengths and weaknesses to them.
Yeah.
Probably the most balanced team, I think, is probably Oregon. But like you said, they don't have as much depth as the other two teams. Arizona is probably the scariest coming at you because of who they have, and UCLA is just another one that they'll shock you because of how much they can score. I guess I would stick with the glamour team here. If I'm picking one, I guess I would probably go UCLA with TJ Leaf and Ball leading the way. I just feel like it's hard to keep with their pace with how much they can put up. Because they're averaging like 90 some points a game. But either of the other two teams have a shot against them, of course. Just like I said, I'm not sure which team is, like, nobody's clear head and shoulders above the other two. This will probably be the conference tournament that'll be most fun to watch, because you don't kind of have somebody penciled in the finals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess it's only fair to say when you talk about UCLA, the offensive numbers are outstanding, but the defensive numbers are puzzling.
Yeah.
Just toward the top of the country in offensive numbers, toward the bottom in defensive numbers. So in terms of most rounded team, that's not UCLA. But if they were to even improve, slightly on defense, that'd make a big difference for them. If they can get 4 more stops a game, they'd be looking a lot better defensively than the numbers show. But, you said you like sticking with UCLA there. I would actually agree. On top of just being offensively a juggernaut, they're a smart team. Not too often do you see them, making dumb mistakes on the floor. Usually if they're not playing well, they're just missing a lot of shots. And that'll happen with anybody, but I'd rather see a team play poorly because they're missing shots than turning the ball over, than committing a lot of fouls, getting another team to the free throw line. And that's just not what UCLA does. Now I'm not saying that's what the other two teams do, but I just think if UCLA can get into the Pac-12 and put up 80 plus a game, in reality, even 75 plus a game, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah. And I just feel more confident that they'll be able to keep that scoring up, because it's not just a couple players just holding the ball and creating their own shots. They, as a team, they average almost 22 assists a game, which is tops in the nation. So it's not that they're just on a streak of just having a couple just ridiculous scores. Yeah. They play team offense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess we're both in agreement there with UCLA, but that's definitely written in pencil very lightly, so we can erase it and make it look like we never wrote it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Now, what are your thoughts on the ACC?
Probably one of the more fun tournaments all year. Being one of the biggest conferences, the depth is always phenomenal. Plus, once the Big East broke down, the ACC stole a few of those teams and already turned a good conference into an even greater conference. So, the ACC is always one of my favorite conferences to watch each year for basketball. You have the typical North Carolinas, the Dukes, Florida State's been good as of late. And then they adopt teams like Syracuse, and Louisville. It just becomes an even better conference that way. But, here I think you have to kind of start at the top and look at, North Carolina. They suffered an interesting loss to Virginia this week, but I don't think that's going to slow them down too much. I'm a big fan of North Carolina. I really like their game. I think they're very versatile. They play both ends of the floor. But Louisville's been kind of silent this year. Great record, impressive wins all year. I mean, they just blew Syracuse out of the water, and did it in pretty easy fashion too. The interesting thing about Louisville for me is they don't really have that star player. Honestly, I don't know that I can name a guy on their roster this year. I can recognize some of their guys, but they just don't have the household name they've had in the past. The Peyton Sivas, Allen, Luke Kennard, Jason Tatum. You got 4-5 teams that can win this tournament. Notre Dame, can't leave them out. They've had a real solid year. They've actually had some pretty good teams over the last 5 or 6 years. Darnell, I think you'll completely agree. The ACC tournament's the one you can never guess who's going to win that one.
Yeah.
Only because it's so deep.
Yeah, honestly, for this one, I think you could go as deep down as 8 teams with at least somewhat of a shot to win the conference tournament. Yeah. Basically, you can go down from North Carolina to Virginia.
And Virginia plays the defense.
Yeah, exactly. And you do that well enough, you're going to be in every game. If you keep it close enough, you have a chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, the glamour teams of this conference are, of course, UNC and Duke. Ty mentioned them. Probably North Carolina this year is more of the favorite, just because they just have a little bit more talent going for them. I think, and there was the earlier dysfunction with Duke with the whole Grayson Allen saga and Coach K being out for a while with his back surgery, but Luke Kennard is a really good player, like you said, and Grayson Allen, when he's not being a little toddler, he's also very good as well. But I mean, yeah, this is a very difficult one to pick too, just because of, like I said, there's so many teams that could just get hot and put in work. I mean, and it's like we said, it's just such a deep conference. Like I say, I feel you can go 8 deep and not feel crazy about who you're picking. But yeah, I guess I would lean with UNC, but I wouldn't count out Louisville. Always well coached. Like you said, they've been quiet, but good players on the team. Donovan Mitchell, their best scorer, 16 points a game. They play a pretty balanced game for themselves. They better defensive team than offensively, but still can make some noise in this conference tournament.
Yeah, and it's funny because you look at the top 8 teams currently. You look at North Carolina, Louisville, Notre Dame, Duke, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Miami, and Virginia. And I mean, you could even throw Syracuse in there. And it always just seems like those teams just beat each other up during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
You get splits for the season series if they play twice. In a few days we have Duke, North Carolina round 2 at Chapel Hill this time. So that'll be an interesting game to watch. That for me,
nice appetizer.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, but for me, that's must watch TV. And I know for a lot of college basketball fans, that is definitely must watch TV. So, here, I'm gonna go with North Carolina as well. I think they just have the complete roster. All the way from Kennedy Meeks to Joel Berry. Justin Jackson, Isaiah Hicks. Yeah, I just like their squad from top to bottom. They all can score. They're very disciplined, play defense. And if I had to pick a second team here, like you said, just because it's so hard, I would honestly probably take Duke. I feel like they're playing some pretty good basketball right now. I feel like their athleticism would help them in a tournament when you have to turn right around and play the next day or with one day off. I feel like that would benefit a team like Duke, who's just very athletic. The only problem being, and I think a lot of times that's why Duke loses early in the NCAA tournaments, because they put a lot of effort in that ACC tournament and they don't typically run a lot of depth. They usually have 8 guys tops that they play. So I think they're good for short bursts. So it'll be, like you said, earlier, forgot exactly what team, but it'll be interesting to see if Duke focuses on the ACC tournament or knowing they're in the NCAA tournament. Just kind of
talking about
Kentucky, yeah. So here, like Duke, do they just kind of let whatever happens in the ACC tournament and then just focus on the NCAA tournament, or do they really give it a go, try to win it, and then give it everything they got in the NCAA tournament? I would just be worried that they'd run out of steam there in the NCAA tournament if they make the full run in the ACC tournament.
Okay, guys, last but not least, how do you feel about this Big Ten tournament?
Well, now it's starting to turn into chaos here, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. For me, I don't know, kind of a down year for the Big Ten, even though, nobody's really doing awful. From the looks of it right now, they'll have about 7 teams in the tournament. Or the NCAA tournament. Barring an outside team wins the Big Ten tournament, they could potentially have 8. For me, Wisconsin's trending in the wrong direction. Maryland's trending in the wrong direction. Michigan, Northwestern, Michigan State trending upward. Each of them having impressive wins as of late. Minnesota's trending upward. Purdue's kind of leveled out a little bit, but I think the Big Ten to me had a very interesting year. Michigan State underperformed. A team like Indiana underperformed after an incredible start to the season, beating North Carolina, beating Kansas. Those wins look great, but they have a 6-11 current Big Ten record. Like that's not good, and I think they're going to miss the tournament. So a very odd year for the Big Ten. In terms of the tournament itself, I like Purdue. I think they shoot the three very well. They shoot at a really good percentage. They have a lot of depth. They have the size. They play the defense. Swanigan and Haas are deadly. Don't count out Michigan State. It's March. It's Tom Izzo's month, they say. They also have the talent too. Losing Aaron Harris was a big blow for them. Even though he wasn't having as good of a year as he did last year. Still experience, a veteran guy you can get the ball to, can hit the three. Looks like Matt McQuaid's stepping up for them. Nick Ward's had a great year. Miles Bridges is having a great year. I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow find a way to the final. But yeah, personally, I like Purdue. I think, like I said, Wisconsin's just trending in the wrong direction. Ethan Happ's still having a good year, but him and Bronson Koenig have kind of been all they've had, and you kind of need more than 2 guys in tournament time. So here, I like Purdue to win the Big Ten tournament. Wouldn't be surprised if Michigan State squeaks into the final. Like I said, we still need to see what the final standings are to see matchups. But just kind of first look at the conference, I like Purdue.
Yeah, I have a similar assessment to this as the ACC, but not because of it really being super deep or talented. It's just, as of late, just everybody's beating everybody in the Big Ten right now, so just kind of don't know what to think of this. If I have to make a pick, it's probably Purdue just because they're a well put together team. They got 2 7-foot monsters down low, and they can shoot. Their bigs can shoot. They're just a bad matchup for just about everybody. Mm-hmm. But if they run into a buzzsaw like they did against Michigan, where they get hot shooting from everywhere, feeling like they're shooting like 90% from 3, you can lose to them. And it's just, this one's a hard. The Big Ten is just a odd division, odd conference this year.
Yeah. Usually a season where the Big Ten will have 5 teams ranked at this point. Yeah. They only have two or 3 ranked right now. Yeah. Purdue and Wisconsin. So, it's been a down year for them, but it's not, in my opinion, I don't think it's because of a lack of talent.
Yeah, it's just, it seems outside of probably Purdue really put together a good season where you look at them and say pretty much overall they played well most of the year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're still going to get, like you said, 6, 7, 8 if we have a random Big Ten champion teams in the tournament, which pretty solid number there. But but they're doing that with really only 2 teams ranked in the top 25. So very odd year. But yeah, my pick is Purdue with an outside shot for the two Michigan schools. Just because I think right now, probably outside of Purdue, Michigan and Michigan State are probably playing the best basketball out this month.
Yeah, the only disclaimer I put on Michigan, and you guys know it's nothing I make up because I say it all the time. When you shoot the three all the time, you
die by it.
Yeah, you're either gonna do it well or do it pretty poor. But I will say, for Michigan, Mo Wagner, DJ Wilson, both inside and outside players. Michigan just needs to rebound the ball a lot better. If they could figure out how to rebound the ball offensively a little bit, they'd actually be a pretty good squad. But they don't do that well. So that's my disclaimer there. But I will say I've been surprised by some of the teams they've beaten this year. Like you said, they kind of whooped Purdue.
I was going to say the way they've beaten some teams.
Yeah. They whooped Purdue once. They whooped Michigan State once. I think they beat Wisconsin by about 10, but being up like 18 at one point. It just kind of an odd year for them. And we both said kind of an odd year for the Big Ten in general, a down year, but everybody beating each other up. So, it'll make for a good tournament, but, I'm not sure any of the teams have national championship instinct in them. But Purdue would be my favorite there only because they're the most well-rounded team coming out of the Big Ten.
Yeah. They're the only team I would say has a shot to get to a national championship game in the Big Ten. Yeah.
And I'm not picking them to get there. I'll tell you right now.
I gotta see
it'll
the draw.
depend on matchups. It'll depend on matchups. It's always matchup dependent. I'll agree there.
All right, guys. Anything else to add to the show? Whether it's more NCAA basketball, UFC, NBA, or
yeah, just real fast. Only Trey, you did ask us if we wanted to talk about the Big East. I don't think we really need to talk about it because I think we both say we like Villanova here. Surprise team being Butler. They beat Villanova twice this year, home and away. So, just got to at least mention, reigning national champion Villanova. Most likely going to win the Big East tournament there.
Yeah.
All right, guys. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning into the show. You can find us on Twitter at BKM_cast. You can also find our podcast on SoundCloud, podcast.com, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. Just hit us up in that search engine. But yeah, it's going to be fun just checking out some of these tournaments. It's going to look like it's going to be really competitive. I definitely got to look in and, get ready to get this bracket, so I can beat these two in it. But, other than that, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. So, take care. Have a good one. Peace.